Donald Trump is a lone wolf coming into the White House. Donald Trump has been spending his transition speaking to large adoring crowds and tweeting to his nearly 17 million followers, basking in his victory and the inherent affirmation of winning the approval of, if not the majority of the American electorate, the majority of the Electoral College. But the president-elect is about to face a jarring reality after he takes the oath of office. It's lonely at the top. And it's lonelier, and more treacherous still, when the commander-in-chief does not have a longtime cadre of loyal friends and advisors to bounce ideas off of, or just keep him on an even keel when it all becomes just too much. He doesn't have anybody that he can trust totally on political issues as well as policy issues. He certainly is willing to reach out and think of different kinds of people for his cabinet. But you have to wonder, who can he sit down and talk to, ponders American University government professor James Thurber, founder of the school's Center for Congressional and Presidential Studies. He doesn't have a relationship with Congress. He doesn't know, probably, how Congress works. He has the core of family he trusts, who were Richard Nixon, who was something of a loner and came from outside Washington, brought Politico's John Ehrlichman and H.R. Haldeman to his White House staff. Both men would be engulfed with Nixon in the Watergate scandal. Ronald Reagan, also a Washington outsider, brought Ed Meese from his home state of California, as well as GOP graybeard Jim Baker. Bill Clinton had his friends of Bill, though some didn't work out, such as childhood friend and initial chief of staff Thomas F. Mac McClarty III. President Barack Obama has longtime friend and advisor Valerie Jarrett, and several presidents, including Gerald Ford, Johnson, Reagan and Obama, have leaned on their savvy wives for advice and reality checks, Perry says. But Melania Trump, who is foreign-born and not schooled in the ways of Washington, can't offer much guidance in that department, analysts note. On top of that, the First Lady-to-be is not even moving to the White House for the first part of next year, staying in New York City so the couple's son, Barron, can finish the school year, owes to him. But beyond that, he doesn't have a wider group of people who have been with him a long time and whom he can trust, Thurber adds. It's going to be hard for him. As a businessperson and reality TV star with no political experience, Trump has not acquired a posse formally or informally that knows him well, knows Washington, and will be unafraid to challenge the president if he appears in danger of a misstep. That's unusual even for an outsider candidate, historians and political veterans say, noting that all modern-era presidents have had some sort of support group, people who can navigate the institutions and egos of Washington, challenging the president while still remaining defiantly protective of him publicly. Harry Truman had his poker buddies, while Dwight Eisenhower had fellow military men to count on, historians say. John F. Kennedy had his Boston Mafia of seasoned politicos, not to mention the high-level family advice of his father, who had been ambassador to the court of St. James, and his brother Robert F. Kennedy, who served as JFK's Attorney General. Lyndon Johnson benefited tremendously from a longtime relationships on Capitol Hill, where he had been Senate Majority Leader. But aide Walter Jenkins was like a son to him, and would sit outside LBJ's room at night in case the president wanted to talk, notes Barbara Perry, co-chair of the Presidential Oral History program at the University of Virginia's Miller Center. Do all presidents typically need these people? Yes, they are human, Perry says, and are in particular need of Washington navigators when the presidents have little experience in the nation's capital. But even aside from the work advice, it's helpful to have people you know have your back, she says. Trump, meanwhile, has famously declared himself not in need of a lot of outside advice. Asked during his campaign whom he relied on for foreign policy advice, Trump said he listened to himself. At the Republican National Convention, Trump laid out America's problems and added, "I alone can fix it." He prizes personal loyalty, but the relationship doesn't always seem to go both ways. He fired New Jersey Gov. Chris Christie is head of the transition team during a purge reportedly orchestrated by Trump's son-in-law. He's a from-the-gut decision-maker, says Paul Light, a New York University professor and founding director of the Brookings Institution's Center for Public Service. Does he have anybody he can sit down with at the end of the day and say, "What's going on?" He won't talk to state. He doesn't take briefings. He doesn't read papers. People who make decisions from the gut really need people who say, "Take it easy, think this through." But I'm not sure what he's thinking when he writes those tweets, Light says. Light recommends that Trump take a briefing, although he hates them, on the Cuba Bay of Pigs fiasco, where John Kennedy was making decisions in an echo chamber. He figured out he needed a team of really good people who could call each other and challenge him, Light says of Kennedy, who felt misled by the military on the Cuba matter. Trump relies heavily on his children, Ivanka, Donald Jr. and Eric, as well as his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. But none has Washington experience or the kind of expertise that can ease both policy and political headaches for presidents. Karl Rove, for example, President George W. Bush's advisor, knew how to direct federal grants to districts where Republicans were politically vulnerable, Light says. But Trump, he says, has no such political mastermind to serve him. Who's his fixer? Who really knows Washington so well that they're going to go out there and really put a coalition together that's going to get things done? Light wonders. The Trump transition team did not respond to a request for information. Trump has, however, announced a 16-member strategic and policy forum, made up of private sector CEOs and financial services industry people to advise him on economic affairs. When it comes to Congress, Trump can't count on them to do his bidding, observers say. Democrats are wary, or even hostile, while Republicans have their own internal fissures to handle. I don't think this election heals the internal problems in their party. They still have the Freedom Caucus and the establishment wing of the party duking it out on the Hill, says Rep. Rick Larson. D-Wash. Trump, who was elected not with a defined ideological movement behind him but voter anger over General Washington inaction, doesn't represent either of those factions very well, Larson says. The policy imprint of the GOP is likely to be drawn not by the Trump White House, but by congressional Republicans eager to get a presidential signature on items they have been trying to get through for all of Obama's presidency, Perry says. That doesn't appear to leave much room for the defiantly outsider president. But then, Trump defied all political rules and norms when he won the nomination and the presidency, she notes. That's why the common wisdom doesn't apply to him. It now never stuns me that he is not going along with many of these patterns or lessons, Perry says. Trump may indeed write a new lesson, or just learn one.